Let's say you're in a situation where you see police lights and sirens, and they're essentially telling you to pull over. And now you know that you don't have any defects with your car, meaning that all your lights are working, no busted taillights. And you also know that you obeyed all the traffic signals before you were stopped. Nonetheless, you're being pulled over and you're not quite sure why. So now the officer approaches your vehicle. They ask you for your license and registration. You find it surprising that they didn't tell you why they pulled you over. So you simply ask, "Hey, sir or ma'am, can you tell me why you pulled me over?" They don't reply. Instead, they say, "License and registration, please." And at this point, you're a little bit frustrated because they won't answer your question. Nonetheless, you intend to comply, but instead of providing your license, you simply ask one last time, "Is there a reason why you cannot provide me with a response to my question on why you're pulling me over?" Now, at this point, the officer is frustrated with you as you are frustrated with them. And so now the officer tells you to step out of your vehicle. So at this point, you don't want the situation to get worse. So you reach into your pocket to grab your license so that you can step out of the vehicle and hand it to the officer. As you reach into your pocket, the officer now draws their firearm at you and they point the gun in your face and they tell you, "Drop your weapon, drop your weapon." Now, you're confused even more because you know you don't have a weapon, and it looks like the officer is mistaken that you have a weapon in your hand or in your pocket. But before you can explain anything, the officer reaches their hand into your window of the driver's side door, opens your door, and forcefully pulls you out of the car. Now, you're taken to the ground and it's a big ordeal. The officer says, stop resisting, and eventually you're taken into custody. Now, during the time you're on the ground, you are in excruciating pain and you don't even know why. And it turns out that the officers broke your arm as they were putting you under arrest. Now, this is a situation where you know the officers were wearing body cameras. So as you're being transported to the hospital and additionally to the police station, you know in the back of your mind that once this criminal case is over, you want to file a lawsuit against the police department. And so the question in this situation becomes, can you access the body camera footage that is associated with the stop in your case? So I am criminal defense attorney Hannah Akintoye, and this scenario that I played out for you is one, unfortunately, that is commonly headlined in the news. You see it all the time. And oftentimes, what these situations come down to when there appears to be two sides to the story is, what does the body camera footage say? Or what does the body worn camera footage depict? And so what it's going to come down to is, for what purpose is this body camera footage being requested, and who is requesting the footage? Now, there are three main situations where body camera footage would typically be requested. One is a criminal case. Two, there's a civil case. Or three, you are simply just a member of the public seeking to access body camera footage. And so with all these three scenarios, I'm going to explain them all. But for today, I'm going to focus on the criminal cases, how to request body camera footage if you are facing a criminal case. So let's jump right into it. The first thing that you have to understand is that if you have a criminal case and the prosecution wants to use that body camera footage against you in the evidence in the case, you are absolutely entitled to that body camera footage. Why? Because if there's ever a situation where the evidence that is provided in a body camera can prove your guilt, or even better yet, if that footage can actually prove that you were innocent of the crime that you were charged, the prosecution, either way, must turn over that body camera footage to you. Now, you, of course, wouldn't be the person that is requesting it. It would likely be your attorney that is requesting it. And typically, what would happen is that the attorney would make a formal request for that footage ahead of time. So, for instance, in my situations, when I have a criminal case, what I typically do is I provide to the prosecutor a copy of what I call my initial discovery and preservation of evidence request. Why I do that is because I don't want that body camera footage to be deleted or destroyed in any way, shape, or form. So I make sure that they are on notice that I want that footage once it becomes available. Your attorney, depending on whatever state that you are in, will make this request. Usually I say probably you want to do that in writing, or make it some way, shape, or form a formal request with the courts, whether it be at a hearing or a court proceeding. But the law requires that the prosecutor turn that evidence over to you, because if they don't, especially if it goes towards your guilt or your innocence, if they don't, it is a Brady violation. So if you've ever heard of that, that's what that means. The Brady doctrine, or the Brady rule, is essentially, it stems from a United States Supreme Court case called Brady versus Maryland. And in that case, essentially, the United States Supreme Court said that any evidence that the prosecutor intends to use or not, that they have in their possession that shows that you are guilty of a crime, or that shows that you could actually be absolved, or it could be exculpatory, meaning that it could prove your innocence, then they must turn that over to you if you request it. The first thing that needs to happen in a criminal case is that you should have your attorney request that body camera footage. Once the body camera footage is requested, the question then becomes how and when will the prosecutor turn that over to you? There are different means and different ways that footage can be turned over to you, but sometimes what the prosecutor may request is a court order from the judge ordering the prosecution to turn over that footage. So there's oftentimes a lot of sensitive information and data on those body cameras, such as dates of birth, social security numbers, and it really all depends on why the police were called to the scene in the first place. And sometimes there could be protective orders that are associated with body camera footage to limit who gets to see the footage, who gets to disseminate it, and how copies of the footage are also distributed. Those protective orders can also include when the body camera footage should be deleted or destroyed after that criminal case is over. So you want to be on the lookout for that if there is a court order associated with turning over that body camera footage. Secondly, depending on what state you are, it may be sufficient to just simply subpoena the records, and that can also be done by your attorney. But regardless, if you have a criminal case, keep in mind that you are absolutely entitled to an attorney. So don't think that you have to do this by yourself. Whether you hire an attorney on your own or whether you are appointed an attorney, in all criminal cases, especially if you're looking at jail time, you are entitled to an attorney. So a lot of these requests will be made on your behalf if you have a criminal case. Now, what do you do if the prosecutor doesn't want to give you the body camera footage? Well, if the prosecution intends to use that information in your case, your attorney could potentially argue that you are now prejudiced, right? And therefore the case should be dismissed. What does prejudice mean? It essentially means that the prosecution or somebody is inhibiting your ability to have a fair trial, or is preventing you from having access to a fair trial. And if that is what's happening in your case, your argument is that your case or your charges should be dismissed. Now, I know that no prosecutor just wants the charges to be dismissed just because they don't want to give up body camera footage. And so in that situation, it may force the prosecution to turn over that footage if the judge is now saying, well, if you don't turn it over, then they would be inclined to dismiss your case. So there are lots of arguments that can be made in situations where, for whatever reason, that footage is not turned over. Now, what the most important thing to remember to do is just make the request in the first place. Because if you make the request to the prosecution and that footage is deleted or destroyed after that request is made, then there's a big problem. And in that particular situation, the prosecution could be sanctioned, meaning that there could be penalties placed on the prosecution in your case simply because they did not preserve evidence that you requested that they preserve. So I hope that information is helpful to you. If you have questions, you can message me here or on my website, mydclaw.com, and I'm always happy to answer any additional questions for you. Stay tuned for the next part in this series where I will be talking about how to request body camera footage if you have a civil case, and also if you are a member of the public seeking body camera footage access. I hope you guys stay safe, and I will talk to you all soon.